Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Frilioth and welcome to another Minecraft tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to build this super quick industrial villager breeder. Now as you can see, I've had it running now for less than 20 minutes because they're all babies in there. See, so it takes a baby 20 minutes to grow up to be an adult. And as you can see, they're all babies in there, so it's been working for less than 20 minutes. And already we've got that many. I can't even count how many are in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 15. I don't know, lots. Anyway, there are lots. At full speed, this will produce a baby about once a minute. You'll get a baby every minute, give or take. But of course, it relies on your villagers being fed, which is what this mechanism does up here. So just to talk you through it to start with, we've got the system that carries off the baby villagers from here to wherever it is you want them to go. And this is something I've used in my other villager breeders. So anybody who's familiar with my work, they should know what that is and how that works. On the other side is a return. So any empty minecarts, once they've gone to wherever they're going and you've done with whatever you want to do with them and you need them out of the minecart, you can send the minecart back up and it comes back into this cactus, goes back into the dispenser there. If you need more storage, then you can stick a chest on there if you want to. Stick as many chests on there as you like. So then at the bottom you've got the collection area where all the babies bob around until the minecart picks them up. Pretty standard. Then you've got the area where we've got 12 breeding pairs. Go and count them. There are 12 of them. So you're probably not going to be building this as your first breeder, and you're certainly going to have a fair bit of a fair few resources knocking about. So by the time you get around to building this, you'll have the gear to do it, no doubt. But there are 12 breeding pairs in there, 24 villagers plus the guy at the top, 25 villagers. So it is going to take you a while to get them, and you can get them reasonably easy. I mean, it's not difficult. You haven't got to find 25 villagers running around in the wild. You can do this using 2 villagers. Just get the 2 villagers to breed. So you've got 3 villagers, and then get 1 at the top, get 2 in a makeshift pod, and start breeding villagers, and then just get them up to the top using a water elevator or minecarts. But get them up there, and I'll show you how to get them in the holes in a second. So then you've got the feeding system, the feeding mechanism. And how this works is you've got your minecart, which is held in place using a fence gate. So it won't go anywhere until that minecart has about 26 items of food in it. And then as soon as it's got about 26 in there, give or take, it might be a few more. Once it reaches 24, that fence gate releases the minecart and it goes off around the track here, this little system, and it deposits 1 piece of food in the dropper, which then makes its way, 1 piece of food in the hopper, which then makes its way through into the dropper, and then the minecart runs over the detector rail, which fires that dropper, so the food that's in there gets shot out to the villager, and it goes around and it shoots out a piece of food, goes back to the middle, does it again. Comes around, shoots out a piece of food, goes around, shoots out a piece of food. So it'll continually feed your villagers. It's not going to feed them super quick, but the reason for having the fence gate there is so it doesn't go off when there's only 2 or 3 bits of food inside it. If you've got a slow farm and you've only got 2 or 3 bits of food in there, these 2 are going to get fed, and then nobody else will. And then it'll go back here. It'll fill up with a couple of carrots or whatever. These 2 will get fed, none of the rest will. So that's what this little system here does. The comparator pulls a signal out of the hopper minecart, and as soon as the signal strength reaches 2, it fires the repeater, the fence gate opens, and it goes off on its merry way. So it only goes on its way when there's enough food in there to completely feed all of them. Now, as I say, it's an industrial breeder. Don't bother trying to get this if you've got a tiny little farm, because it's just a waste of your time. Seriously, you'll be wasting your time. You really need a decent sized industrial farm for this to work. You need a constant supply of food. If you haven't got food coming in constantly, there's no point in having a breeder this big. So just bear that in mind when you're building it. If you need to build an industrial farm, then there's a tutorial on the on my channel where I build a one chunk farming complex, which would be ideal for this. And then just get all of your goodies, all of your food coming in down these things here, whatever they're called, these these hoppers. Crikey. So you see it going into the dropper there, goes into the minecart hopper. As soon as there's enough in there, it goes off feeding the villagers. Now villagers need, I believe it's 12 carrots or potatoes and 9 bits of bread before they get in the mood to breed. So, you know, when you put these guys in there empty and you start this working, you're not going to start getting babies straight away. It has to go around a few times to feed them to start with. They need at least 12 in their inventory to breed, but they won't start breeding if they've only got 12 in their inventory, because they won't use all of the stuff that's in their inventory. So you've got to have, I don't know, 24 bits of food in there before they'll start thinking about breeding. I've waffled on far too long, but this is important. Don't build this if you've only got a tiny little farm. Not worth it. And then up here you've got the switchable system that turns it on and off. That switch there drops down that block, invalidates those doors. Now, you know, in a few minutes, give or take, these guys are going to stop breeding. That's not going to turn them off straight away. It's not a light switch. It won't turn them on and off straight away. What that's done now is invalidated those doors. So when Minecraft decide to update these guys and let them know that there is no longer a valid village up there, they'll stop breeding. But that doesn't happen instantly. So don't expect to flick that switch and then these guys to stop straight away. As you can see, they don't. It doesn't work like that. However, they will stop breeding within a couple of minutes or so. You might have to leave the chunk and come back again, but they will stop breeding, but it won't be instant. And then to turn it back on again, you flick that switch. So I'll stick a list of the ingredients that you need to build this on screen now. Pause the video if you need to. Now you can mix them. Oh my god, look at that. I mean, in the time I've been talking, we've got all of those guys. This thing is a monster. Once it gets going, it's a monster. So if you need boatloads of villagers, this is the guy for you. But don't come crying to me when you've got villagers everywhere, because you will have. Hence the reason we stick a switch on it. So if you want to drop those down a big hole, you don't need any of this paraphernalia. Just drop them down a hole. Drop them straight down the middle if you want to. Otherwise, we'll build it as it is here. So let's get started. I guess you need to find an area where you want to build it. We'll build it just over here. We'll start here. So what we need to do to start with is build the bottom piece where the baby villagers are going to be collected. So you need to build an area that's 3 by 3. That's going to have your water in it, and then you want to put a rim of blocks around that, a 5 by 5 rim of blocks around that. So your water's going to go in there in one corner. It's going to push them over to the other corner. This is where, this corner here is going to be where you collect them from if you're using the minecart system. Okay, now on top of this, you need to put some glass. So we need to completely surround this wall, cover this wall with 3 levels of glass. Here's 1. 2. 3. 3 levels of glass. Right, in the bottom now, down here, in this corner, well, in fairness, it can be any corner. You need to pick the opposite corner where your minecart is going to be. So if you want all your villagers to come out of here, pop out that block, and this block needs to be a solid block. You can't put a glass block there and expect the minecart to work. It won't, and I'll go through this in a second when we put the minecart up. But that block has to be a solid block. So once you've determined which corner you want your villagers to come out of, grab yourself a bucket of water, throw down some water, and now anything that falls in here is going to go over to this side. Okay, now to do the minecart collection system, you need to grab yourself a redstone block. You don't need a redstone block. You can use a block, redstone torch underneath a block. I just find it easier to use a redstone block like that. And then you need to build a bit of a pyramid. So you need to build a bit of a pyramid like that. You've got the redstone block, or a block with a torch underneath it. If you want to put, as I say, if you want to put a torch underneath a block, then you can do. So if you want to do that, then you can do. That's perfectly fine. So once you've built your pyramid, grab yourself some rails. You need a detector rail, you need some powered rails, and you need some normal rails. You need to put a powered rail there, and then you want to put 2 normal rails, a powered rail, detector rail on the top, and then powered rails down the other side. And then you want to pop out those 2 blocks there, grab yourself a redstone torch, put 1 redstone torch there, 1 redstone torch there. That's going to power these powered rails. Now when you put a minecart on those rails there, going to bob up and down like that until you get a villager in there. As soon as you've got a villager in there, it's going to go over the top. Now, as I mentioned before, let me just get rid of that water, otherwise it'll all go pear-shaped. Just for a second. As I mentioned before, you have to have a solid block there. If you want to surround the bottom with glass, then you can do if you want to. But that block there, that one, needs to be solid. If it's not, that happens. It doesn't bounce, it stays there. Completely ruins your farm, completely ruins the breeder. So that block needs to be solid for this to work. Okie dokie, right, let's get that filled up with water again. Let's get rid of the minecart for a second. Right, now to do the system that replaces the minecarts on the track, once a villager's bred and taken a minecart, you need to whiz round the other side, put a block there. So you've got the top of the pyramid with the detector rail on it. You need to put a block just there. It's just there. I was trying to describe where it goes, but I can't. It's just there. And then on top of that block, facing this way, you need a dispenser. Now this has to be a dispenser. It can't be a dropper. So you want that pointing towards that powered rail, just there. Then whiz round the back, and on the block that's got the detector rail on top of it, you need to put a torch. So every time now, minecart comes up, goes over the detector rail, powers that block, which unpowers the torch. When the torch comes back on again, it's going to fire whatever's inside that dispenser onto the rail. Brilliant. Then grab yourself a hopper, put it going into the back of the dispenser like that. So we're nearly there now. Now what we need to do is grab yourself some more blocks, and you need to build another pyramid of sorts going up to this hopper here. This is going to be the return. So the powered rails, the rails are going to go up here, the minecart's going to go up here, over here, and then it's going to run in to a cactus. So you need to put a solid block there underneath below the level of the hopper. And on top of that, you need to put yourself a block of sand. Bit of sand like that. On top of the sand, you need to stick yourself a cactus. Like that. And then just stick a block on top of it. Any block you like, just to stop it from growing, really. And grab yourself some powered rails. Powered rails there, and then there. Pop yourself underneath with a torch there to power those rails. So now every time a minecart goes up there, it's going to run into the cactus and then it's going to place it back into the dropper. Perfect. If we put a minecart on there, now if you imagine babies are in there, jumping up and down, push to the side, go into the minecart. They go into the minecart. And then another minecart's dispensed. Perfect. Now we can start working on the next level, the breeder level. So for the breeder level, you want to find the center. Which is that block there. Find that. Put a block in it for a second, and then you need to count out 4 blocks. 2, 3, 4 on every side. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4. Okay. Then pop out the center block and then fill this in so it's a level. So it's a floor level. Okay, so you've now got that. Then you want to stick yourself down a temporary block in one of the corners and put a block next to it, and then you need to do a rim around the side of it in blocks. Now this can be glass if you want it to be. I'm going to make the bottom out of solid block, but you can make this out of glass if you want it to be. And then you need to put some glass above it. Actually, what I'm going to do is put a couple of blocks in the corner. 4 blocks in the corner. Just to break up the glass a little bit. This is really aesthetic, so if you want to put coloured blocks there, wood, stone, it's up to you. But this is just aesthetic at the moment. And grab yourself some glass, and you want to put 2 layers of glass in between each one of these columns. Okay, like that. Okay, now we've done that, we need to stick some water down at the bottom. This is going to force all the babies to fall down the middle of the hole. So grab yourself some water. You're bound to have an infinite water source somewhere. I know you do. And then put some water in each one of the 4 corners. So now anything that drops down into here is going to fall through, drop down into the bottom, force to the end, and then get picked up by the minecart. Now what you need to do is put down some blocks for the villagers to stand on. Now, I think I'm going to use glowstone for them to stand on this time. You don't have to, but it looks nice in the dark. You can use solid blocks if you want to. So you need to find the corner where you've just put the water down. Put yourself down a solid block, glowstone, and then another solid block on top of it. Miss one, put down a block, miss one, block, miss one, block. Okay, so you've got that, and then grab yourself some glowstone. This is going to be the block that the villagers stand on. Now you can use sea lanterns if you want, or you can use solid blocks. It's up to you. And then you want a temporary block on top of that. This is just going to make it easier when you're putting the panes of glass down. If you don't have that temporary block on it, it's going to be impossible for you to place glass panes. And now you can get rid of the blocks at the bottom. Now take out your glass panes. We're going to use light grey. I do like light grey on this texture pack because it's almost invisible. But black is nice as well. But I'm going to use light grey. And then go to the outside, and you need to put a piece of glass pane on the outside of every one of these temporary blocks that you've just put down. The ones on top of the glowstone. Basically, we're surrounding this block with glass. We're doing, with glass panes, we're doing that. Okay, so you need to do that on every one of these blocks. And then in the middle, joining them together. Like that. And then on the inside, do that. So now every one of these blocks, has got a bit of a pane of glass next to it. And once you've got the panes of glass in, you can break out these blocks. You don't need them anymore. Okay, now what you need to do is grab yourself some glass again, your light grey glass or whatever glass it is that you're after, that you're using. And then you need to put yourself down some glass on top of the panes that you've just put down. Now this is difficult to explain, so you need to follow what I'm doing. You need to put down the glass everywhere that you don't have the glowstone underneath it. So you need a gap there. But everywhere else, you need to put yourself down some glass blocks. Okay, so now we've got glass covering all of this, apart from that, what I've missed. It's very important that you do that. If you don't do that, the village is going to be able to get out. Apart from the ones directly above the glowstone. Okay, now you need to grab yourself a bucket of water again, or several buckets of water, and you need to put some water on top of the glowstone. Now if you put the panes down there correctly, that's going to sit there and do nothing, which is exactly what we want it to do. Okay, so if you've done it correctly, that's what you're left with. Now we'll tidy this up as we go along, so grab yourself some more glass, and you need to put another rim of glass all the way around the outside. Okay, now we've just got to put one more layer of glass on top, exactly the same as we did here. So we need to cover the entire roof with glass, apart from the holes where you've just filled in the water. And this is where you've got to be really careful not to fall in. Obviously in creative you can fly about. If you're in survival, you really don't want to be falling in there when you've got this glass in, otherwise you're going to have to stop breaking stuff and it's all end in tears. So just take a little bit of time here. Okay, so now you're left with glass on top and some holes leading all the way down to the water. Now we need to get our villagers in there. Just as I say, just double check it. I should be using glass that you can easily see. It's my bad. But anyway, it's too late now. It's halfway done. Now, if you're in survival, if you're in creative, don't throw your villagers straight in the hole. If you do, they'll sit on top of each other, and it'll be a nightmare. It won't work. So what you need to do, this is only if you're in creative, spawn your villager there and then push him into the hole, and then spawn another one and push her into the hole. So they don't sit on top of each other, they sit in opposite corners, which is exactly what you need. If you're in survival, that's what's going to happen anyway. as I say. But creative, do not spawn them directly into the hole. It'll just cause you problems. Whoa, he's off. Crikey. Brilliant too. He obviously didn't like that fella, did he? Having none of it. Wow. Not. Oh, it's because the village is over there, isn't it? Yeah, they're trying to get to the village over there. That might cause me a problem trying to get these fellas in. Yeah. Don't do this if you've got, you know, an iron farm close by. As I mentioned, A, it was going to break your farm if you have got an iron farm close by, and B, these guys are going to go running off all over the place. So, yeah, do not build it near other doors. Okay, so once you've got a pair in each hole, that's what you're going to have. Pretty straightforward so far. Okay, now we need to get the glass on top of these guys to pin them into the hole. And I'll explain what that's for in a second. But what you need to do is grab yourself some glass blocks and and normal blocks. Stick yourself down put yourself down a temporary block in the middle there, and then stick yourself down a block of glass over the top of the hole. It'll take you a couple of goes because they're jumping up and down. But once you've got a bit of glass over the top of it, you need to put 3 bits of temporary block, 3 blocks above the glass, and then pop out the second to top one. Put yourself in a piston, get yourself a lever, and you need to force that glass down on top of those guys. So we forced it down once, now that's directly above their heads, and you need to force it down again. So get yourself another block and force it down again. Now it's completely over the top of them. It's not going to hurt them, don't worry. And then pop out those temporary blocks, and now you've got a bit of glass completely covering the villagers. So now any food you throw in there isn't going to fall all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so you've got your glass above the hole, 3 bits of glass, sorry, 3 blocks, pop out the second to top, put yourself a piston, force the block down once, force the block down twice, delete those blocks, and you've got your villagers encased in glass. So temporary block, glass block over the top, 1, 2, 3 temporary blocks, knock out that one, stick in your piston, force it down once, force it down twice, delete that. There you go. We'll do it once more. Temporary block, glass block, 1, 2, 3 blocks, piston, then get your lever, force it down once, force it down twice, delete these blocks, and they're all encased. Okay, have you got that? Do you want me to do it just once more? I'll do it just once more. Temporary block, glass block above the hole, 1, 2, 3 temporary blocks, get rid of those, get yourself a piston, force it down once, force it down twice, there you go, all encased. Okay, so I'll do the rest of them, and then we'll get on with the feeding mechanism. Okay, so once you've forced all the glass blocks on top of the villagers, that's what you've got. Now, you'll know whether or not you've missed one, because if you've missed one, they'll be jumping up and down much higher than the guys that have got blocks over them. Ones that have got blocks over them just can't jump up and down as high. So now we need to get the mechanism in place that feeds them. But before we do that, we need to identify the northwest corner of the farm. So what you need to do is press F3, and then you need to look at which way you're facing. Currently I'm facing north, and that's west. North, west, northwest. So this corner is the northwest corner. Self-explanatory really, but we do need to know where that corner is. So you want to go to the northwest corner, the one that you've identified as the northwest corner, and you need to stick down a dropper facing the hole. Then another one, and then another one. Those three facing the holes that the villagers are in. And then you want to spin round through 90 degrees and put some more droppers facing those holes, 3 of them facing those holes. Spin round through 90 degrees, same again. Okay, and then through 90 degrees, same again. So now you've got 3 hoppers on each side facing inwards. Now we need to stick down the... Did I say droppers in our hoppers? You've got 3 droppers. Why don't they call them something else? 3 droppers facing inwards on each side facing the villagers. Now we need to stick in the hoppers. So you need to follow this really carefully. You can't get this wrong. In fairness, you can't get any of it wrong, but this is doubly important that you follow this. This has got to be done letter for letter. You need to grab yourself a hopper and you need to put it on the right hand side of this dropper, facing that dropper. Okay, see the little nozzle facing in. Get over to the next one on the right hand side facing the dropper on the left. Hopper on the right hand side facing the dropper on the left. You spin round through 90 degrees. You put the hopper on the right hand side of the dropper facing the dropper. Okay? Hopper on the right hand side facing the dropper. Hopper on the right hand side of the dropper facing into it. Little nozzle facing into it. Through 90 degrees again. Same again. Hopper on the right facing the dropper. Hopper on the right facing into the dropper. Hopper on the right facing into the dropper. Now on the last one, the one that's to the left, on the west end edge, the west side, if you're facing, press F3, you're facing west. This one you have to put the droppers, the hoppers, on the right hand side of the droppers. There, there, and there. So 3 sides, the north, east and south sides, you want the hoppers on the right of the dropper. Okay, see that? On the west facing side, when you're facing west, you need the droppers on the left hand side of the dropper. Hoppers on the left. See there, they're facing right, they're facing left. I hope I'm not overcomplicating this and confusing you guys, but this is important. So hopper on the right facing left on the north side, on the east side, on the south side. The hopper is on the right hand side of the dropper. On the west side, when you're facing west, the hopper needs to be on the left hand side, facing the dropper on the right. Ah, crikey. Hopefully I've not complicated it too much, but it needs to be done because we need this gap. We need that gap there in the corner for the rails. Now grab yourself some hoppers, whiz round to the outside, and now you need hoppers facing the hoppers that you've already put down. So just whiz round now, putting hoppers facing into the hoppers that you've just put down. Okay, like that. Perfect. Now grab yourself some slabs. These have to be slabs. Can't be solid blocks. Have to be slabs. I'm using quartz slabs to go with the theme. And then you want to run a line of slabs all the way around the outside. In the corner there, that can be a solid block. But the rest of them have to be slabs. If it's not a slab, when we put the detector rails on there, it's going to lock those hoppers. And we don't want it locking the hoppers, so that's why it's got to be a slab. Now this one has to be a slab because it's next to a hopper. Actually, no, it doesn't. Okay, and then this is a solid block. You put a solid block on the corner. Now, on top of this hopper, you need that to be, grab your rails now, you need to grab some rails. So you need to grab some powered rails, some activator, some detector rails, and some normal rails. Now, on top of this hopper here, that's next to a solid block, you need to put a normal rail. It's the only one that you need a normal rail on. Okay, the rest of them are going to be powered. But before you do any of that, grab yourself detector rails and put a detector rail behind the back of every one of these droppers. So now every time the minecart goes over the detector rail, it's going to fire that dropper. Brilliant, it's just what we need. So now you need to identify again the northwest corner just for a second. It's going to be that one there. Okay, now you need to stick down another layer, another line of slabs on the inside of the ones that you've just put down. Okay, like that. Perfect. Now in the middle, let's get rid of the F3 screen. In the middle now you can start putting some solid blocks, but you can't put the solid blocks above where the villagers are. So now you want to put solid blocks on every piece of glass that doesn't have a villager underneath it. It's going to be where all of your minecart rails run. But obviously you can't cover your villagers. Okay, so now you've got slabs around the outside, you've got solid blocks in the middle, none of them covering those guys. Now at this stage, be very careful that you don't go falling into these holes. If you fall into that hole now, then you're going to have to start breaking blocks to get out. And nobody likes that. Okay, so now you should be left with that. Now what we need to do is put down the rest of the rails. So get back to the northwest corner. That's your northwest corner that we've identified before. And then you want to put a powered rail after each detector rail. So you've got detector rail, you need a powered rail. Detector, powered, detector, powered rail. Spin round through 90 degrees. Detector rail, powered, detector, powered, detector, powered rail through 90. Detector, powered, detector, powered, detector, powered rail through 90. That one needs to be a normal rail because of the droppers, the hoppers underneath it. But that's a detector, so you want a powered, detector, powered, detector. Now the final detector rail, the one that's on the west hand side, the last one that we're doing, has got to be a normal rail. Because we need that to curl round there. And this is why we couldn't put it on another corner. Because if we'd have put that on another corner, we wouldn't have been able to do what we're just about to do. Now what we need to do is try not to complicate this for you. Northwest corner, you need to run a line of powered rails to there, and then 2 more powered rails there. Okay, and then you want to run normal rails from there. Now you can pop that out. You need to run normal rails like this. Okay, it's difficult to explain, but that's what you need to do. That's the pattern you need to get, which is why we couldn't do this in any other corner, because if we tried to do that in any other corner, they'd snap the other way. They'd snap up there, which would stop this from working, which is why we needed to put it in the northwest corner. Okay, and you want to put normal rails there. And then while you've got the normal rails in your hand, you just need to run the normal rails all the way around the outside now to completely finish the circuit. So the minecart's going to be here. It's going to go down here, around here. Once the minecart goes onto the detector rail, it's going to power those rails as well, which is what keeps the minecart from going. That's what keeps the minecart moving. So now we've got most of the rails down. We need to stick down one more torch. Just there. and we're pretty much set for the rails. Now we need to put the loading and unloading system for the minecart. Okay, so grab yourself a solid block, and you need to put a solid block there on the end of that. You need to pop out that rail as well, just for a second. We'll put that back in a second. So you want a solid block there, you want a temporary solid block there, and then you need to put a fence gate on top of that block, and then you can get rid of that block. You can't put a fence gate in mid-air, so you need to put a block there to start with, then take it out. Then you need to put your powered rail back in again, and then you need a detector rail. Detector rail there, and then any rail on top of it, just so it goes upwards. You need it to go upwards like that, and then you need to put another block on top, like so. Now we need to grab yourself a comparator, put a comparator coming out of that detector rail now into a solid block next to it, solid block there. So you've got comparator, solid block, solid block, solid block leading back into your fence gate. And then on top of these two solid blocks, you need to spam down some dust there and there, spin round, and then put a repeater leading into the fence gate. So now every time a minecart's on there, when it's got something in it, it's going to power that comparator, which is going to open the gate. But it won't do it when there's less than 24 items in the minecart hopper, and that's important, because if that minecart goes off on its way, minecart hopper goes off on its way, and it's only got 4 bits of food in it, then the first 4 villagers are going to get food, and then the rest of them are going to get nothing. Going to come back, it might get another 3 or 4 bits of food in, it's going to go off again, these 2 are going to get fed, the rest of them aren't. So that's why we have to have this little mechanism here. This allows the minecart to fill up with at least 24 bits of food, so it's got plenty of food to go all the way around when it comes back again. So everybody's going to get fed every time the minecart goes around. Now, to make sure this is working, grab yourself a hopper minecart hopper, pop it on the track and give it a push. You should be able to hear the droppers clicking, and then when it gets back, it'll park itself up until it starts to get filled up again. Okay, now grab yourself a hopper, and we need to put a hopper above that rail there. I don't think you're going to be able to do it now with the hopper, with the minecart in the way. So what you might have to do is just open the gate, close the gate again, and then put the hopper facing downwards onto the detector rail. As I say, you can't put one down. If you can't put one down, you might be able to. But if you can't put one down with the minecart there, just open the gate and then close it again, and then put your hopper facing downwards onto the detector rail. Now anything that goes into that hopper is going to go straight into the minecart, and this is where the input for your food is going to be. Now, as I mentioned to start with, this is an industrial breeder. You need an industrial farm. You're going to need a farm that is generating a lot of food, and this is where all your food comes in. So have your farm, wherever your farms are, have them coming in to here, and only have one flavour of food coming in here. Don't have potatoes and carrots and wheat and everything else coming in here. That won't work, it'll break it. Only have one or the other. So if it's going to be carrots, make sure it's only carrots. If it's going to be potatoes, only potatoes. Potatoes is probably not a good one, because you might get the odd poisonous potato in there. So carrots is probably the best one to do. Don't have wheat coming in here either, because non-farmers can't convert wheat into food. So really, unless you're going to be throwing bread in there yourself, really you want carrots. Carrots is your best crop for this breeder. Okay, so now we're nearly there, and this has been a long old tutorial, I know, but it's going to be well worth it once it gets going. Okay, so we're there, pretty much done. what we need to do now is cover the rest of this. We need to cover the hoppers, the droppers, all of the holes. We need to cover it with glass. So grab yourself some glass and then just spam down some glass over the top of everything else. What we don't want is we don't want, you know, bits of, well, A, we don't want zombies falling in there and eating those guys, and B, we don't want stuff falling in the hoppers that's not food and being spat out onto the villagers. It's not nice. So we need to cover all of it with glass. And this is also going to stop you from falling in. Because if you're anything like me, if there's a hole knocking about, you're going to fall in it. This is just going to stop you from doing that. Have we got them all? We've got them all. Obviously, you can't put it above the tracks. But you knew that anyway, didn't you? Okay. Perfect. Also, this is going to stop mobs from spawning up here. They can't spawn on the rails and they can't spawn on the glass. But just to be safe, throw yourself down some torches. You can never throw down enough torches. Remember, torches. Redstone causes lag. Flashing redstone causes lag. Torches negate the redstone, flashing redstone lag, and also stop mobs from spawning up here. Brilliant. We're nearly there. Honestly, we are nearly there. Right, now we need to build the village, the fake village at the top. So now grab yourself some blocks. You're going to need a little stack of blocks, 6 or 7 of them, and you need to get into the very centre of the breeder, very middle, which is going to be 5 blocks in from each side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There. So it's going to be on top of here. So you need to put down a block on top of that dust. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 blocks. Okay. Then on top of this block, you're going to need to put yourself down a sticky piston. Put yourself a sticky piston facing upwards. And then on top of the sticky piston, stick yourself down some glowstone. Doesn't have to be glowstone, can be a solid block. I use glowstone because it adds some light at the top. So the poor villager stuck up there all on his own isn't in complete darkness. Then coming off each side of this glowstone, you want to put 2 solid blocks. Like that. Okay? And then you want to fill the gap in around the side with some glass. This is just going to stop the villager hopefully falling off. They're not stupid. They're not, they're not ridiculously stupid, but it's possible they could fall off. If you're worried about it, you can put glass all the way around the outside of it, but this can only be glass. It can't be a solid block. So if you've got plenty of glass, you want to be doing this. Okay. Now grab yourself 8 doors. And you want to put a door on every one of these blocks. So you want 2 there, 2 there, 2 there, and 2 there. And now this is where you can throw your villager in. So get your, water elevators, minecarts, and there's loads of ways of doing it. But for me, it's spawn egg or nothing. And spawn yourself in a farmer. Spawn yourself in a villager. Now, if you want to put a glass roof over the top of him, you can do. Might make him feel a bit safer, but has to be glass. Don't go using solid blocks up here. Otherwise, you will break the breeder. Has to be glass. The amount of times people have said to me, I've put the roof on and my breeder stopped working. Yes, it will. It'll stop working. Okay, got to be glass. And also, as a side note, from this level of your doors, that's the level of your doors. From that level upwards, all the way to Y256, all the way to sky, you cannot have a solid block. So if you've got a solid block at Y256 that's within 10 blocks of either direction of these doors, it will break your farm. Okay, so do not have a solid block within 10 blocks, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Within that distance from your door, above it, all the way up to the all the way up to sky, all the way up to Y256. Otherwise, it'll break your farm. So don't go building it near buildings. Don't go building it near mountains. Don't go building it underneath anything. If you've got a really nice iron golem farm that's at Y256, or a mob farm that's at Y200 or something, I'm not quite sure why you'd want to build one that far up. But if you have, it will break this farm. And it's really important, and I'm labouring this point as well, but it's really important that you don't do that. Otherwise, it will break your farm. Okay, we're nearly there now. Now what you need to do is start throwing these guys as much food as you can. Okay, these really need to be fed. If you've not fed them already, this is the time to start feeding them. So grab your carrots or whatever it is you're going to feed them and start throwing them in there. Loads of them. Seriously, this is an industrial breeder. It's going to take loads of food. Okay, so now that's working, and your village is starting to get fed. We're almost ready. It's almost ready to start working. What you need to do, last thing, grab yourself a switch and stick it on the bottom of this block here, just there. Okay, so now this is what turns the farm on and off. At the moment, these doors aren't valid because there's no roof, and I'm not going to go into how Minecraft decides whether a door is valid for a village, but as long as there's a block above the level of the door, it doesn't have to be above it, all the way above it, but it has to be above the level. So that has now made those doors valid, those two doors valid anyway. So in order to make the doors valid now, flick the lever and that block comes up, and now all 8 of those doors are now valid doors. So we've turned that into a proper village. And we can see that it's a valid village because if I press B, I've got software on my PC that allows me to see the bounding box of structures and whatever. And you might be able to see the dots form a big sphere around the village. There you go. You can see that quite clearly. So that sphere is the range of the village. That's 32 blocks away from the centre of the village. And the centre of this village is just there. Is that glowstone there? So we know that's now a valid village, and we just need to wait for these guys to finish throwing food to each other and getting in the mood. And we'll start having babies. But I might be able to show you, if you build this within 64 blocks of another village, this could happen. I've taken the doors down off this village here, otherwise it will interfere with it. So if I put another door down here, it automatically increases the size of the village. So now instead of having 2 villagers, or the centre of the village being over here, it's now taking into account this door. So when I say don't build it within 64 blocks of a valid door, this is why. Because it increases the size of your village, and it's going to break your breeder. So we need to get rid of that block there. Sorry, get rid of that door there. And now the village is back centered around around this village here, which is what we need. If you want to build another one of these somewhere else, it's got to be outside 64 blocks. If you want to build an iron farm, it's got to be outside 64 blocks. You stick another village here, and it's going to mess up your breeder. So yeah, word of warning. See, it just increases the size of it. This needs to be 64 blocks away from iron farms, from villagers. Again, I don't want to labour the point, but it's important that because if you don't do this, it won't work, and then you'll be all upset, and you'll have spent a lot of time doing this because this is going to take you a long time to do. And what I don't want you to do is do all of the work and then it not work just because you've got a door somewhere. So now that's finished. We've got the mechanism in place for carting your villages off where you need to send them to. We must have had one already because the minecart's gone. Yeah, there's another one. Yeah, they're coming out thick and fast. We'll leave the minecart off for a second so we can see it working. Now on the edge, some of this food is going to pop out and go over the side underneath the slabs. If it does, and there's no rail on top of it, you can pop that out and replace it with a solid block. But you can only do that with slabs that don't have rails on them. So that one there, for example, that can be popped out. You can replace that with a solid block. Put your glass back again. This corner here. Okay. Now this one here, yeah, you can replace this with a solid block as well. Let's wait for the minecart to go off back round again. Pop it out. Solid block. And that's just going to stop carrots from getting stuck. So that's how you build my industrial super quick villager breeder. I hope you have enjoyed this tutorial, everybody. If you have, please don't forget to leave it a like, give it a big thumbs up. If you haven't enjoyed it, give it a thumbs down, but please tell me in the comments why you didn't enjoy it. And if you've really loved it, don't forget to subscribe for future tutorials. This is Frilioth with all these babies, and I'm out of here.